Hello, this is the LEGO Technic Peugeot 9X8 Le Mans Hypercar 2022 model, 2023 LEGO set. It comes with 1,775 pieces, and I built it live over on Twitch for my 2-year Twitch streaming anniversary. I paid $200 US for this, and if you see a View Products link on your screen, you can click that to see some places where it can be purchased. If you make a purchase, I might get a tiny commission. With respect to size and scale, here's a random minifigure, and a little bit more importantly, it is 1/10 scale. That is the intent of this. So if you compare it to other recently known scales of cars, you can see exactly where it fits. It's very comfortable to me. Its size and the build process for this felt a little bit challenging in only a good way. It has a good amount of density, I'd say, all the way through. It feels like a proper Technic vehicle and not just a skeleton with some panel skin over the top. There's a nice amount of working linkages for the suspension and everything. You've got the engine in there, which I'll show you, and you've got some drivetrain. You've got some things that can move around, some things that can be opened up, and just generally, it feels pretty right to me. It feels like a good balance between looks and function and just the Technic, the maybe not traditional Technic build experience, but the modern Technic build experience in a good way. When I say modern, I mean not based on bricks, but rather based on mostly lift arms and with a little bit of integration of LEGO system in there, but not too much of it. For example, right here, you have a little bit of LEGO system for these lightsaber bars, which are actually glow in the dark. They glow pretty decently, but not for very long. It's not a major feature, and it definitely looks nothing like, in practice, it looks nothing like what you would see in the nicest marketing photos that really show these off. But you do have a little bit of system building back behind there. This does have quite a lot of stickers, and I'll show you what's left of the sticker sheet at the end so you can see just how much that really is. You have a lot of layers and different facets, building vertically, building horizontal, different sub-assemblies that go together, things that are angled like this right here. This large panel is angled in nicely. You see it has a large sticker over it as well. Thankfully, the sticker, the gray match is pretty good, I'd say. The gray color match is pretty good between the backing of the stickers and the dark gray main color. Relatively recent new piece here, used in a nice opaque color. And the doors are able to open just where they're supposed to. You know, that's absolutely appropriate. You are able to see some pins and axles and things that are a little bit off color, but it doesn't feel too bad. This one, to me, this feels like it's Technic first, display model second or third. And in that context, and especially with the grays and the blacks, I find it to be easier to accept the off-colored pieces on this, especially since there aren't too many of them. Lots of stickers used right here for those elements which in real life will light up. An additional one just right there. Got the little gurney flap on the back here, which is nice, and that was done with some system building. The spoiler is angled up slightly. You got the suggestions of the small winglets off to the sides. I'd say the proportions of this are pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. Overall, it feels fairly balanced. It feels close enough, and I feel like most of the things that are off proportion wise are forgivable because of the LEGO system and just the parts that are available. That gap right there, yeah, I don't like seeing that because you shouldn't be seeing that. And I think that's easy enough to fix. They could have put just a very small panel piece in there, just something to fill it in a little bit, but it doesn't bug me from most reasonable angles. There is a small Hand of God steering knob up here for you to control the steering angle. And not only is it connected to the wheels and tires up front, it's also connected to the steering yoke inside. There's not a whole lot to see in that interior, but it is nice that you can actually control the steering directly from the yoke if you want to. They've got the bolster there and some stickers and genuine building as well to have the initial kind of marketing unveil version of the interior that's very bright The front body lid is able to simply angle up like that to let you see the monoshock suspension inside. And this is, it kind of works. You got the push arms there that are connected up. And I feel like the spring rate is within a reasonable range. Now, they weren't able to get dampening into this, but at least it feels appropriately stiff, and I think the ride height is pretty decent. There's a differential there, a small differential up front, because this car in real life does have all-wheel drive. It has the electric drive up front, and there's a suggestion of a single electric motor just behind here, just back there. Yeah, actually, the outside of it is able to spin, so you see that working. I like this piece right here. It makes for a nice base to, it's Technic, so they don't have an actual windscreen in the space, but all that shaping there is pretty nice. And again, just with the density of stuff, working stuff, you've got stuff for the steering column up front, you've got the differential there, you've got the suspension that does work, and then the gearing going back, also additional gearing, taking you out to the hand of God steering, as well as the takeoff for the interior realistic yoke steering. The engine cover comes off just like that. All of that just comes off. It's actually just sitting here, which is a surprise, but there's enough weight to this assembly that it feels fine, even though there's no physical connection. It slots in there nicely, successfully, without any hassle. Don't have to really line it up right, and it just goes there and it stays. So I'm okay with that. You've got suspension that works at the rear, and interestingly, they've set it up very similar to the real thing. As far as I've seen, I've only been able to see one picture that shows the suggestion of pull rods on this, so you don't see any shock across the top or spring. Instead, you've got one on the underside. And it does work. It was a fairly complex linkage system. This one does feel a little bit soft the way it ends up. Needs just a little bit tightening, relative to the real thing, but that's okay. I think that's completely acceptable, and the compromise is fine because, getting that realistic arrangement there is very nice. And here you can see the underside of the engine. It's a V6. They've got this right here, which I believe represents the battery pack. It's a cartoonified version. More for the sake of marketing than anything, the way that's labeled up, but it's the idea that counts. And the engine uses the standard Technic block pieces with the pistons. You've got working differential back here, single speed transmission only, so you're not able to run through the gears on this, to row through the gears. Suggestions of turbos on either side with the exhausts up here that are definitely undersized, but didn't feel too bad to me. Again, looking through this, the density of stuff, useful stuff that you want to see, stuff that matters, feels good to me. And then the areas that are empty are not significant, and many of them represent areas that would be empty on the real thing too. So again, a feeling of balance and good use of time and space. What I like least about this is the size of the cutout for each of the front fenders. That's just a bit much. I feel like that needs to be reduced down by, I don't know, a quarter or a third, especially side to side with the placement of the tires there. You get a lot of gap towards the inside that just doesn't feel good or look good from many angles, where you would actually be looking at this from, somewhat from above. So there you can see your desk or table or shelf underneath, and that's not a good look. So that needed to be covered up, or at least if there was some paneling, some black paneling down here, just to block some things off, even if it was just a little bit of a cheat. I think that would help a lot, especially if you have this against a surface that's not completely dark. Put it against something black, that's going to shade everything away. In contrast, these back here, these openings are fine. One of the big reasons here is that this doesn't look good is that the tires are not as wide. I believe they're not as wide as they, proportion-wise, or even as large overall as they would be for the real thing. And that's fine. I think a reasonable compromise, but should have just been blocked off here. Just for the looks. But overall, most of it, I think, is covered up well enough for this scale. You do have, again, some gaps. You have some colors that you see that you don't want to see, but it feels okay to me for this size. I'm not bothered by this. It's clearly not trying to be a 100% exact perfect replica, and that's okay. It feels like a Technic car first, and I respect that. I prefer the focus in Technic on Technic as opposed to dust collection. If these are the only leftover spare parts, why am I zoomed out so much to show them? Behold, the sticker sheet. That's a lot of stickers. Wait. Next page. Yeah, both of these. Both of these. All that and all that. It's a lot of sticker coverage. However, believe it or not, strangely, it did not feel oppressive to me. Many of these are important for the branding and for the look of the real thing, but it did not feel oppressive. I didn't feel like I was having to stop at every other step or so to put more stickers on. It felt like they were spaced out well enough, and each one is large enough that the total number didn't feel terrible to me. It actually felt more comfortable. The kind of sticker to regular part ratio through the building experience than a Speed Champions car, for example. Price-wise, this again was $200 US for me. It's 200 euros, 170 pounds UK. In Canada is 280 Canadian dollars, which for a change is $7 or $8 US more than the price that I paid. It's a lot of money for this amount of stuff. Lego is expensive, but at least this kit is good. It doesn't feel absolutely outrageous, the price, relative to other things from Lego especially, and relative to some other collectibles. This is unique in that it is based on the system. There is the entire build experience. I think there's a good amount of value here overall. I'm not going to strongly recommend for or against its price. I would push that more off to you, but I will say from my own perspective, I feel like I got a good build experience here. I feel like this is a well-designed model. I feel like it uses the Technic system properly and appropriately, again, with that density of the build, how long it takes to put it together, the most primary purity of it to the Technic system. It does not use a lot of Lego brick-based stuff. It doesn't use a bunch of specialized molds or anything. And even the stickers kind of felt just right to me for the fact that this is a race livery vehicle. So overall, I'm very satisfied with this. It just feels like it's a good job. It was a good job by the entire design team. Principal, build designer, graphic design team, just all across. Some of the strategic work, engineering help for some of the design stuff. I just think it's good. This is how Technic cars should be done. As for the scale, I personally don't like lots of different scales. Not everybody is like that. I would prefer that there would be fewer scales, especially fewer scales that are close to one another. But I know, again, plenty of collectors out there of, for instance, just regular diecast models and such will have diecasts of all kinds of sizes. For me, I like to specialize on one size so that all of the stuff that I put together can look like it goes together. So I have 1/18th scale diecast models. With my Gundam builds, I focus on 1/100th scale, though I do deviate just a little bit as needed in there. But the fact that this is 10th scale, the Hypercar, one of them's gone. The Hyper and Supercars are 1/8th scale, and then you got the Ford GT scale, which is the same as one of the Ferraris was and one of the Porsches was. Then you got the Bolide. They got quite a large range in there, and a lot of that does come down to not just the design work, but the budgets in particular. And they want to have things available at different price points. So maybe maybe it's unreasonable for me to ask for things to be more consistent, but it is something that is a little bit of a negative to me. I would be happy with this being the standard. I would also be happy with the 12th scale because that Ford GT was very good, but this is excellent. The amount of content that's packed into this is great. The $200 worth pushes it a little bit, but again, doesn't feel outrageous to me. the experience was good. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. Hope this was of some value to you, to help you to come to your own conclusions, and I'll talk to you again soon.